On today's show, Alperen Şengün going absolutely toe-to-toe with Nikola Jokic in a heavyweight prize fight. But the Rockets get robbed as they fall in overtime to the Nuggets. We're going to break it all down for you right here at Locked On Rockets.
This is Mission Control, Houston.
Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
What is up, and welcome to another edition of Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Now the #1 sports podcast network. As always, I'm your host, Jackson Gatlin, native Houstonian and credentialed media member. Be sure to follow along wherever you listen to your podcasts or on YouTube. Just search Locked On Rockets. On today's show, we're going to be breaking down the Rockets' 128-125 overtime loss to the Denver Nuggets, in which Alperen Şengün went head-to-head, pound for pound, in a heavyweight prize fight with Nikola Jokic. But the Rockets ultimately robbed by some just absolutely atrocious officiating in this one. We're going to talk about all the angles from this one, the gigantic questionable call at the end of regulation, which I think was basketball malpractice. A lot to break down from this one. A lot of good, but a lot of frustrating from this game. We're going to get into all of it here on today's show. First, I want to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. If you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. And as always, thanks so much for making Locked On Rockets part of your day every single day, whether it's on your way to work, on your lunch break, in the gym. Thank you so much for being an everydayer. Final score, 128-125. And look, on the surface, I want to say this game was incredible. This was some incredibly high-level basketball was being played throughout this game. We were watching two of the NBA's most elite teams trading blow after blow, just haymaker after haymaker, back and forth, back and forth. There was a sequence in the fourth quarter where it felt like the Nuggets were getting ready to pull away, and the Rockets just had an answer every trip down. Every big bucket the Nuggets hit, the Rockets had a big bucket as a response. And it very much felt like we were watching the #2 seed and the #3 seed in this head-to-head matchup. It was a game that had playoff intensity, playoff vibes. You had monster games across the board. Alperen Şengün, 33 points, 10 rebounds, 10 assists, couple steals, a block mixed in there, to go directly almost pound for pound with Nikola Jokic, 39 points, 15 rebounds, 10 assists, 2 steals, 2 blocks. Just what a response from Alperen Şengün, who really struggled the last time that these two teams played against each other and got significantly big brothered by Jokic. So it was great to see him have a bounce back performance and really live up to the capable of play, or his ability to play at this level against the best center in the NBA, right? And showing, hey, I'm one of the best centers as well. Like, I'm right there. Murray was unbelievable in this game. 35 points on 17 shots. Got to the free throw line 15 times. Rockets really didn't have an answer for him. He just had it going. The two-man game between Jokic and Murray is just absolutely absurd. Kevin Durant, 25 points, but only took 14 shots. Incredible efficiency. Felt like he was automatic most of the night, but needed to be more involved late. And we'll talk about that a little bit later on in the show. And look, it just every single time the Nuggets felt like they were pulling away, the Rockets had a response. In fact, the end of regulation was absolutely insane. The Rockets scored 13 straight points on 5 straight trips down the floor, spanning from about just under 3 minutes when the Nuggets called a full timeout, and basically Rockets were trailing by 5, 109-104 after a made free throw by Cam Johnson. And it kind of felt like, man, here's the spot where the Nuggets are going to start to pull away. And the Rockets came down and just possession after possession. You got big shot after big shot from Jabari and Şengün and Reed Sheppard. And then KD hits a huge 3 to tie the game up at 115. You know, it was such a back and forth affair down the stretch of this game. And then the Rockets actually managed to take the lead. They sent Jamal Murray to the free throw line. He only goes 1 of 2. Nuggets go up by 1. Rockets run a play. They get a great look for Alperen Şengün. They run a little inverted pick and roll action with Alperen Şengün, Kevin Durant. Alp gets the switch, backs down the defender, gets all the way to the rim, gets to his little turnaround, little baby hook shot, and it just, rolls in, soft touch. And Rockets are leading this game 117, 116. You only have to D up for the final possession. Just nothing stupid, only 2.3 seconds on the clock. It's going to be really hard to get any kind of a shot off. And Nuggets start running their inbound action, and Tim Hardaway Jr. flashes towards the top of the key and seemingly trips. And a whistle is blown. And then upon review, the referees tried to justify this. And I know that there's a clip running around from the Denver Nuggets broadcast. It wasn't shown on the Rockets broadcast. It wasn't shown on the national TV broadcast. Don't know why. And it shows the most marginal of incidental contact that I think I've ever seen in a basketball game, in a moment of this magnitude at the end of a game, literally a call to decide the outcome of a game, to whistle the foul at Amen Thompson and away from the play foul before the ball was inbounded, therefore giving the Nuggets 1 free throw and possession. So effectively tying the game up at 117 all, and then giving the Nuggets still a chance to win it before it ultimately went to overtime. And we'll talk about the overtime sequence and kind of the rest of this game here as well. But it was one of the most egregious calls I think I've seen in recent memory in the NBA. And for every fan, for every Nugget fan, for any basketball fan that's trying to argue that call, put yourself in the shoes of the Rockets, right? If that call went against your team, you'd be livid. You'd be furious, because incidental contact like that happens all the damn time. If bumping your shin against another player and then that player proceeded, look, here's the thing is THJ looked like he was falling before the incidental contact happened. Like, it looked like he literally just tripped over his own feet, and the refs bailed him out with a whistle. And I hate talking about the refs, man, but when they make themselves the story, it's the most frustrating, unprofessional, disappointing thing that we had such an electric game between two of the NBA's best teams, two of the NBA's premier contending forces outside of the reigning champion OKC Thunder, right? And it feels like now this is the story from the game, unfortunately. And that's really disappointing. It's dumb to talk about it this way, but that's the reality of the situation. And that wasn't the only like blown call, missed call, phantom call, whatever. This game as a whole felt like a mess. Just before halftime, Ime Udoka and Alperen Şengün both being whistled for technical fouls because they felt calls were going missed, in that first half, and both of them let their anger get the better of them, and they let the referees know it. This was Ime Udoka talking about the officiating after the game.
Part of the BPL, I guess?
Yeah, I guess. Just in general, I think it's poorly officiated game I've seen in a long time. Two have no business being out there, and the crew chief is acting starstruck. So you're seeing all kind of inconsistent calls, and I'm sure we should have got a few more texts.
What do you say to your team when a game is being called the way that it was tonight?
Keep being who we are. We're not going to adjust to poor officials. So we're going to do what we do, and hopefully they can adjust and call it the right way.
Look, at the end of the day, I think all sports fans, regardless of Rockets fan, Nuggets fan, unbiased third party, whatever, can all agree. We just want games to be officiated consistently, right? And so, look, if you're going to call that incidental contact, fine. If you're going to call the game like that all the time. But the problem is we see incidental contact like that be ignored all the time, or we see selective officiating, like with SGA's patented off-arm shove that is literally his go-to move, and it never gets whistled, right? So when the NBA makes a call about something I'm not I'm not going to don the tinfoil hat all the way, but like the Rockets were minus 1.5 at that point in the game when that call was made. So, the betting lines probably shifted and some people made a lot of money off that final play. That's all I'm going to say. So look, it was a mess. It was stupid. And it's dumb that outcome ultimately is what forced overtime. And the Rockets still had chances in overtime. And so ultimately they lost in OT. They had this game won at the end of regulation and they were robbed there. And then they failed to execute in overtime to close out this game. And from that perspective, we can actually look at the basketball, see what went wrong there and how they actually got away from what they did so well in regulation to have earned what should have been a win against this Denver Nuggets team. But parting thoughts from Ime Udoka here, some legendary sound bites, and this is kind of sums up my vibe on this game.
Take your sensitivity and emotions out of it and call the game the right way.
And also,
get some glasses, open your eyes.
That's about where we can leave that off. Coming up, want to talk about how the Rockets struggled in the overtime period against the Nuggets. We'll talk about some of the other elements from this game. Kevin Durant, fantastic, efficient game, but needed more from KD in this one, especially at the end. We're going to get there in just one moment. First, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. NFL Sundays move fast, one big play, and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds, every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is best when the game starts to shift, a receiver gets hot, a defense tightens up, or the momentum flips after a turnover. FanDuel lets you jump into the moment with live spreads and money lines that adjust instantly, player props that update as different guys are heating up. You can bet on next touchdown scores, drive results, totals, and so much more. It keeps you locked into every snap, every drive, every single possibility. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. And continuing on here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast, home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. Now look, this game ultimately stepping away from the mess that was one more for feeling.
Get some glasses, open your eyes.
Just play that a couple more times just to get the feelings out. This overtime period, though, was tough because you had a Nuggets team that was churning offensively, and Jamal Murray, the Rockets really didn't have an answer for Jamal Murray, unfortunately, in this game. He played like a superstar. 35 points, 17 shots, got to the free throw line at will, and he had the first two buckets of OT, and then the Nuggets had a big three. They went up 7-0 to start overtime, and credit to the Rockets. They responded. They tried to claw their way back into it, but ultimately, even with Jokic off the floor is the thing. Like they just the Rockets were so undisciplined at the end of this game. And I really feel like they were kind of rattled by the officiating. Like, again, there were moments, obviously Ime and Şengün had the technicals just before halftime. They were frustrated. They were trying not to let the refs, get in their head, but this is a young team and they're still prone to some of these, we'll call them immature moments, right? Because at the end of the day, unfortunately, dealing with lopsided officiating is part of the game at times. And you have to find ways to overcome that adversity, even if it feels like you're playing 5-on-8, even if it feels like there's no calls or incorrect calls going against you. Alperen Şengün, one of the late possessions in the fourth quarter, right, gets shoved in the back. And, by Tim Hardaway Jr., no less, the guy who gets the bailout call from at the end of regulation, and absolutely no call there from the officials, right? And then Amen Thompson with a clean rip on Jamal Murray and then gets whistled for a shove in the back at the, half court line. And it's literally just like his hand on his waist. And I don't know, that contact happens on every possession, almost every single possession in the, in the association. I don't know. It's just a mess. But this Rockets team, it felt like they were pressing a little bit in overtime, right? You went from what was such beautiful offense and great execution at the end of regulation for those 5 straight possessions that led to some really high quality shots and ultimately some great like shot making ability, right? For the Rockets to, knock down all those shots that they did hit to ultimately take the lead, 117-116 there at the end of regulation. And they just kind of got away from that in overtime. They started settling. They started falling into like the trap of just like your turn, my turn, like ISO play. But the biggest, and this is the most significant takeaway from this overtime period and kind of this game, as a whole. And I think we've seen this with a bit more regularity than I thought we would have seen this season. Kevin Durant needs to be involved more at the end of these games. And I get it. And we've discussed this a lot on this show, is that this Rockets team, to get where they want to go, right? Ime has to thread the needle between development and contention. And if the Rockets just wanted to bludgeon teams over the head with the two-man game between Kevin Durant and Alperen Şengün, they could do that all day, every single day. And most games would probably look like what Jokic and Murray just did, right? 74 points combined between the two of them. That's probably what Şengün. In fact, we've seen Şengün and Kevin Durant have games exactly like that, where they both go off for 30 plus and it looks awesome and they look unguardable together and everything. But this Rockets team is also in the really delicate position of not really truly having like a de facto go-to third option, unfortunately, or at least not a consistent one. Amen Thompson is certainly that like third banana of the Rockets' big three, but he's not a consistent enough scorer, not a consistent enough offensive threat on a night-to-night basis, because his offense is very matchup dependent at the end of the day, or how teams are scheming against him. Jabari Smith Jr. is too passive at times. Reed Sheppard's still too inconsistent. Realistically, like a reliable third option in this Rockets offense would have been Fred VanVleet, because like in big moments like this, we know Fred VanVleet is capable of hitting big shots and has shown time and time again through his first 2 years in Houston that he is not afraid of those big moments and that he can show up when it matters most. And, there's this issue where the Rockets are trying to grow and develop so many of these young guys, and ultimately they need to be able to do that to raise the ceiling of this team to get where they want to go and to ultimately increase their title odds by season's end. But one shot attempt for Kevin Durant in all of overtime is flat out unacceptable. Like that literally cannot happen. That is basketball malpractice for Kevin Durant to only have one shot attempt in an overtime period that he played all 5 minutes, right? So even though Jokic wound up fouling out of this game, Valanciunas fouled out of this game, like it didn't matter, because the Rockets failed to just go to their proven, tried and true recipe for success offensively, which is ball in the hands of one of Kevin Durant or Alperen Şengün, empty out the floor, run empty quarter action, two-man game between those two guys, and just let them cook, right? Because what does a defense do? I mean, we've seen how effective those two are when they play off of one another and when they play together. And it is baffling to me, especially like, even for example, like the final play of the game, right? You run this sideline out of bounds action, and the best that you can get is a throw into Alperen Şengün, who immediately turns around and heaves a 3-pointer and doesn't even draw iron. Like, that was the best that you could draw up. There wasn't anything else that you could draw up to get the ball and loft it over the top to 7-foot-tall Kevin Durant. And I know that the Rockets were probably worried that the Nuggets were going to foul and, foul up 3, yada, yada. The Nuggets didn't have any bigs left to put in the game. Both their bigs, Valanciunas and Jokic, had fouled out. So the Rockets would have been at a distinct advantage at the free throw line had the Nuggets fouled up 3. You send Kevin Durant to the free throw line. He sinks the first one, right? And then you intentionally miss the next one. You got Steven Adams and either Şengün or Clint Capela there to crash the offensive glass. I like those chances quite a bit more than a turnaround fadeaway Alperen Şengün 3-pointer, right? So just really poor execution, all through the overtime period by the Rockets. And ultimately, this team needs to be able to figure out that, like, they have two superstar players. They have Kevin Durant. They have Alperen Şengün. And there's been just maybe a little bit too much experimenting so far this season, and not enough like, hey, let's just do what we do really, really well and put the ball in the hands of our 2 star players and let them go to town, right? Let them work. There's sometimes lineups where it's Kevin Durant leading a lineup without Şengün, or vice versa, Şengün leading a bench unit without Kevin Durant. And there's possessions where sometimes neither of the Rocket star players touches the basketball, right? Where it's just like it becomes for a split second like the Amen Thompson show or the Reed Sheppard show or whatever. And like I get the development aspect of it, but it feels like the Rockets need to be a little bit more selective in when and where they choose to do some of those things. And in a game like this, in what feels like a potential playoff preview between a very good Nuggets team and a very good Rockets team, that's not the time to, experiment and give different guys the green light. Like Kevin Durant should have not finished this game with 14 shots. Kevin Durant should have taken a minimum 25 shots in this game. And I don't know. It's really tough when you see the shot distribution across the board. You see Reed Sheppard took 17 shots in this game. Credit to Reed Sheppard for letting it fly and not being shy about it. But if even half of those shot attempts wind up going to Kevin Durant instead, feels like the Rockets probably win this game pretty handily and not, not us belly aching over being in the position to allow the NBA to steal a game from them at the end of regulation. Right. So coming up, want to talk about other elements of this game, some of the positives, some of the insane highlight reel moments from this one. It really was an electric game that was dampened a little bit by the officiating.
Get some glasses, open your eyes.
We'll get there in just one moment. First, today's episode is brought to you by Skims. Look, when Skims announced they were making underwear for men, the reaction made perfect sense. People have been talking about Skims comfort for years. Most guys, though, stick to whatever they've been buying since college. The same fits, the same waistbands that roll out and boxers that flare out over time. Skims Men's changes that. One upgrade, and it's obvious why everyone's been talking about it. Look, when I tried Skims underwear, I was hooked. I immediately understood the hype. They're designed to feel good. They fit right. They actually stay put. No slipping, no sagging, no adjusting throughout the day, and they keep their shape no matter how many times you wash them. It's great. Just genuinely great underwear that makes you feel confident and comfortable. My perfect pair of Skims underwear are these stretch 5-inch boxer briefs. They're awesome. They move with you. They support an active lifestyle. They're great whether you're just out running errands for the day, going to work, maybe you're going out and playing some pickup basketball, whatever it is. They are awesome. So shop Skims Men's now at skims.com. And when you place your order, choose podcast in the post-purchase survey and select our show from the drop-down menu that follows to let them know that we sent you. Plus, the Skims holiday shop is now open. So if you're looking for the perfect gift this season, Skims has you covered. Today's episode is also brought to you by Wayfair. The holidays always show up faster than we expect. And if you're still putting together gifts, last-minute decor, or getting your home ready for guests, Wayfair has you covered. Whether you need a quick room refresh, new bedding, or those final season touches, Wayfair makes it easy to get exactly what you need fast. Wayfair truly is your one-stop shop for everything home, with decor, furniture, kitchen essentials, and gifts for every style and every budget, all delivered quickly and easily. Their selection is absolutely massive. Bedding, decor, kitchen gear, kids room updates. You can find everything you need all in one place. And my favorite thing about Wayfair is the no hassle delivery. They get it right to your doorstep with no issues. It truly is a seamless process. Get last minute hosting essentials, gifts for all your loved ones, and decor to celebrate the holidays for way less. Head to wayfair.com right now to shop all things home. That's wayfair.com, WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. And final segment here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. Now, look, elsewhere in this game, just kind of throughout, right? This game really felt like another big test for the Rockets, and it's disappointing because they, now you can go, okay, they're 0-2 against the Nuggets, they're 0-1 against the Thunder, they're 0-1 against the Pistons, they're 0-1 against the Spurs, right? And so but I think context is important here in the fact that they had the Thunder and the Nuggets on the ropes in both of these games, right? And this Rockets team is still a team that is very much still figuring some things out and trying to establish itself and learn kind of on the fly, all while overcoming, significant injuries. It still cannot be overstated the impact of losing Fred VanVleet, right? The turnovers in this game situationally, even though neither team did a great job of capitalizing off of the turnovers in this one. The Rockets turned the ball over 16 times. Nuggets scored 17 points off of those 16 turnovers, and then the Nuggets turned the ball over 11 times. Rockets scored 12 points off of those. Even though the turnovers didn't, exactly lead to an abundance of like transition scoring or different opportunities for the Nuggets, those turnovers still hurt this Rockets team, right? And there were still plenty of moments where it felt like they needed a calming presence to kind of settle things down a little bit. And as good as Kevin Durant and Alperen Şengün both are, I think at times, they both do struggle to calm things down for this Rockets team. And there can be a level of, erratic play, whether it's Kevin Durant, dealing with ball pressure, or Alperen Şengün still being a little immature, a little young, and rushing through some of his, decisions offensively that could be prevented by having the steady hand of a veteran point guard to kind of like table set and get guys in the right spots and make sure good possessions are being drawn up, especially in crunch time of these kind of close games. But the Rockets are going to ultimately have to figure it out. They're going to have to get over the hump and figure out how to beat some of these good teams. Being in these games is not enough, right? They're going to have to figure out how to start piecing together some wins against these upper echelon opponents, moral victories and whatnot, that they're like right there, wire to wire with some of the best teams in the association. But, we'll see what this team looks like as they continue to grow and develop ultimately. Look, with there were some amazing moments down the stretch of this one that I did want to highlight here. Kevin Durant's defense in the fourth quarter was absolutely elite. Like, Kevin Durant played his ass off in this game. Had he finished with, how many blocks did he finish with? 5 block shots. I think he had 4 of them there in the fourth quarter and a steal. Like, just, he was everywhere. Blocked Jokic on literally like back-to-back possessions there in the fourth quarter. One of them led to directly to a Rockets 3-pointer, I believe. It was a Kevin Durant block party in that fourth quarter. And the Rockets, I really felt like, despite getting in the bonus super early there in the fourth quarter, and this goes back to some of the officials. Just
get some glasses, open your eyes, take your sensitivity and emotions out of it, and call the game the right way.
Rockets were in the bonus like super early in the fourth quarter, and yet it felt like they only 5 free throw attempts, right, throughout the whole fourth quarter. A Rockets team that was in the bonus, I think they got in the bonus at like the 7-minute mark or something ridiculous. Like, they were in the bonus really early in the fourth quarter because they fouled out Valanciunas near the top of the fourth. He picked up like a quick foul at the end of the third, and then a couple quick ones at the top of the fourth, and then he was gone. Like, bye-bye, Valanciunas. And so the Rockets were in the bonus for, I want to say, like 7+ minutes of the fourth quarter, if I'm not mistaken, maybe 6+ minutes. And they failed to capitalize on it, right? Like, it should have been a free throw parade. Them just marching to the free throw line, drawing contact, forcing the referees to blow the whistle. And one very pivotal moment in this game, and I want to give a ton of credit to Reed Sheppard for this, despite his struggles. And it was a rough night at the office for Reed Sheppard, right? 14 points, took him 17 shots to get there. He wasn't shy about it. But again, in a game where the Rockets needed some semblance of offense from somebody other than Kevin Durant or Alperen Şengün, right? Just, Amen Thompson was being guarded by Jokic and was neutralized, unfortunately, because as a direct result of it. It was very disappointing to see. The Nuggets just switched Jokic onto him and said, hey, just back off of him, force him to beat you from the perimeter, and he couldn't do it. And there were a couple times that he wound up attacking Jokic, but it wasn't nearly enough, unfortunately. Didn't put anywhere near the right amount of pressure on Jokic they just kind of let the Nuggets live with that defensive coverage, and the Nuggets were happy to do so. But this is where it hurts not having like a dedicated third option, right? A dedicated guy that can take some of that pressure off of, or at least capitalize off of some of the moments from Şengün and KD in this game and all the attention that they were commanding from the Nuggets defense. But there was a play. It was the play where Jokic fouled out, picked up his 6th foul on the Reed Sheppard drive. And literally moments before on that play, Amen Thompson had the ball on the perimeter, was sizing up Jokic, started to drive in, and then just pulled it back out. completely bailed on trying to get downhill against Jokic. And it's like, that can't be the mentality for Amen Thompson. It can't be. Like, you are one of maybe quite literally the best athlete in the NBA, and you're being guarded by Nikola Jokic, who, like, I'm not gonna, like, Jokic is not like a slouch of a defender, but like, that's such a mismatch in favor of Amen Thompson. Like, just get downhill, force contact, make the referees blow the whistle, right? Jokic was playing with 5 fouls. He would have ceded ground immediately. There were multiple points where he was playing with 5 fouls against Şengün and had no choice but to let Şengün fly right by him, right? And Amen Thompson just completely gave up on the play. And then Reed Sheppard gets it on the swing to the other side, and then Reed Sheppard sees clock winding down, drives in, draws contact, and Jokic fouls out of the game. Rockets cannot just be okay with teams scheming around Amen Thompson by guarding him with an opposing big, right? We've seen the Rockets deploy that strategy countless times against poor shooting opponents, non-shooting individuals, whatever. And it's hilarious to watch because you're like, oh my God, this guy is such a bad shooter. He can't punish him. Okay, cool. We'll live with that. That's a win for the defense. Amen Thompson and the Rockets, Ime Udoka, and company, they have to figure out ways for Amen Thompson to be able to get downhill and attack, because you can't just live with the opposing big being parked all the way back in the paint and being ready to double team and collapse and force the ball out of the hands of the star players and muck up the offense, because that's exactly the switch that the Nuggets made. Is they took Jokic off of Şengün and they put him off the ball guarding Amen Thompson primarily in the second half, after, watching Jokic get not destroyed in pick and roll, but just struggling to keep up with the coverages in pick and roll and keeping up with Alperen Şengün, who had, again, a monster game in this one. I don't know. I feel like there needs to be more there from Amen Thompson. And he had, moments in this game, a couple smoked layups here and there, that where he gets all the way to the rim, does all the hard work, right? Beats his defender and just doesn't quite convert right there at the cup. Although credit to Amen, because he got a huge rebound at the end of the game that did, give the Rockets a fighting chance, down 3. But just a tough game. Like, and this Rockets team still has some question marks. They've still got a lot of stuff to figure out. I also wasn't really like for a guy who usually leaves his fingerprints all over a game, really felt like Steven Adams didn't do a whole lot while he was out there, which is surprising because the Nugget, and it was weird because the Rockets very, like, I don't know if this was intentional or unintentional or whatever, but like, it felt like the Rockets didn't match up their double big lineup at all with the Nuggets double big lineup, right? Like, you have, Jonas Valanciunas and Nikola Jokic out there at the same time. And yet it felt like the Rockets, if at all, I don't remember actually off the top of my head if they did match up at all at the same time, but usually the Rockets lean into that double big lineup of Adams and Şengün, and it really felt like Adams didn't really have his usual impact in this game. No rebounds, no assists, no steals, no blocks. A turnover, was a -8 in his 16 minutes, and that's very uncharacteristic for Steven Adams, who usually has such a massive impact on a game. Also want to give a quick shout out to Josh Okogie, who was flat out incredible in this one. Even though Jamal Murray cooked in this game, Okogie made life hard. And he was like a huge spark for the Rockets in that third quarter, after what was kind of a disappointing close to the half, a really rough second quarter for the Rockets, where they lost the quarter 34-21. Okogie was a massive spark there in the third quarter. 5 of 6 shooting, scored 11 of his points in that frame, had a ridiculous, like, driving from the baseline double clutch dunk that was absurd. Okogie was pretty awesome in this game, and he has been, like, pound for pound, one of the best signings in the NBA for the Rockets, having started as many games as he started and filling the role that he's filling in the absence of Fred VanVleet and Dorian Finney-Smith, who the Rockets, desperately miss. It's been great to see Josh Okogie step up and be able to fill that role and be kind of that added defensive point of attack guy. And then also have moments like this where he just feels like his energy just helps kind of turn the tide of a game or can help carry you through a quarter where he just gets going. And it's really, really fun to see when he gets that way. Nuggets are the second best team in the NBA, trailing only the Thunder in first quarter and third quarter scoring. And the Rockets actually won the first and third quarters against the Nuggets. It's just they were so bad in that second quarter, lost that quarter by 13. But they won every other frame in this game. And then they lost in OT by 3. So tough loss, disappointing loss. You got big games from your star players, needed more from Kevin Durant. Not that he didn't do a lot. KD was awesome. 25 points, 5 rebounds, 7 assists, a steal, the elite defense. But the Rockets need to find ways to get him the ball more. You know, that just flat out can't happen. And it's a two-way street. Kevin Durant needs to demand the ball more. Kevin Durant needs to be the superstar and put his foot down and be like, give me the ball. It's crunch time. Let me cook. I'm Kevin Durant. You know, and that's something that this team desperately needs to get figured out moving forward. With that, I want your thoughts on this Rockets-Nuggets game. Give me your thoughts on the officiating for sure.
Get some glasses, open your eyes, take your sensitivity and emotions out of it and call the game the right way.
Give me your thoughts on the officiating. Give me your thoughts on the head-to-head matchup between Alperen Şengün and Nikola Jokic, their back-and-forth battle. Kevin Durant's lack of involvement down the stretch of this game. All those thoughts, talk to me in the YouTube comments. But as always, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. We look forward to having you back right here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball.